In this video, I'm going to share the best podcast hosting platforms in 2024 specifically for entrepreneurs. If you're an entrepreneur, which is who we make videos for on this channel, there's some slightly different things to consider when you're choosing a podcast host versus a hobbyist, for example. I'm going to share three, and the third one is the one that I use and really like, but it's not the best one for everybody. In fact, the reason I decided to make this video is because just this week, I was helping two different clients pick the best podcast hosting platform for them. And some of the basic things that all podcast hosts should have, and all of them that we are going to cover today, include automatic distribution to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all of the other major podcast platforms, an embeddable audio player that you can put on your website or wherever else you want, IAB certified measurement, and if you're not familiar with what that is, you don't need to really worry about it, but basically it is a measurement standard that's better than just downloads, that's getting more and more adoption. So I always look for a platform that has that, because I think that's the future when it comes to podcasting. And there's one more feature that I think as entrepreneurs we have to have in whatever podcast host we choose, and I think still most podcast hosts don't have this or don't do it very well. I want to explain it a little bit more in depth, so I'm going to do that at the end. So whether you go with one of the three that I recommend today or you go with a different direction, you want to make sure that it has this feature. So let's jump into the first one, which is Captivate.fm. So Captivate is really robust, has a ton of features, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But one thing to look at when you're choosing your platform is how do they take payments? And I don't mean like, PayPal or whatever it might be, but how are you paying for it? So the way Captivate works is you can actually upload as many hours of podcast content as you want, and you pay based on the number of downloads that you use. So it's kind of a neat system, because if you're going to maybe have more than one podcast, then you can actually have more than one podcast on a single plan on Captivate. The downside is if you blow up, and obviously your show is going to be awesome, then if it goes over a certain number of downloads per month, then your price also goes up. So we'll look at pricing here in just a second, but that's one thing to kind of know about Captivate. What I love about Captivate is if you're the type of person who wants all the bells and whistles and everything like that, it's got, I think, just about everything. It also offers the ability to have private podcasts, where these are podcasts that don't show up in the public feeds, but you can have people pay or not pay. Maybe they pay you as a membership or a client, or within a company, and you can deliver podcasts that way through a private link. They have a ton of integrated guest booking, where you can actually have your people book their appointment within Captivate. If you have a WordPress website, Captivate has a free WordPress plugin to automatically basically put your podcast on your website, which is kind of slick. And Captivate supports having a podcast network. So if you are building an empire, then this is a good one to look at. I told you, this one has all the bells and whistles, right? Now, what I don't like about it is, first of all, it costs more than the other two options that we're going to look at today in most situations. And also, it is going to be overly complex for a lot of people. So one of my clients that I worked with this week, she was like, yep, I want all that stuff. That's perfect. For me, I wanted something simpler, and I'll tell you what that is here in just a second. And so Captivate was not right for me. As I mentioned, Captivate does their pricing based on how many downloads you get. So for up to 30,000 downloads a month starts at $19. Then you can go up to $49 and $99 for their business plan. The features themselves are actually relatively similar throughout. So who is this best for? This is best for people that want all the bells and whistles and endless analytics and private podcasts and the WordPress plugin and the guest booking and all of that different stuff that we talked about. But it's not for somebody who is watching a very tight budget and maybe wants to keep things a little bit simpler. They don't want to log in and see this complex dashboard that sort of makes their brain melt every single time. Next up, we're going to look at Podbean. Podbean has been around for a long time. Relatively simple to use, and the biggest thing to know about Podbean is the way they do their pricing is it's unlimited uploads and unlimited downloads. So you can upload as many episodes of any length that you want, and your audience can download as many as they want. Now, they do have what they call a fair use policy in the fine print. So if all of a sudden you're getting a jillion downloads per month, they're going to cut it off a while before that. But it's a pretty big number. Cable companies and internet companies kind of have these things too called fair use policies. But just know it's not truly unlimited, but they're not monitoring it like some of the other companies are, which is kind of cool. So what's good about it? The unlimited uploads and downloads. They also will host videos for video podcasts, which you may not need. I'll tell you about that here in just a second. And they have a mobile app. If you like to do stuff on your phone, Captivate that we mentioned a minute ago does not have a mobile app. Podbean does have a mobile app, so that's kind of nice. And when it comes to video podcast, here's the thing to know. If you're just putting your video podcast on YouTube, which is what I do, you don't need a platform that offers video hosting. We're still in this, even though we've had video podcasts for like 20 years, I think I put my first one up in 2005, we're still figuring out how these work. So like on Apple, you can have a video podcast, but it's a separate feed than an audio podcast. So we're not quite at the point where you upload a video and they're going to distribute it everywhere with video. So the best practices right now is to upload your audio to your hosting platform, upload your video to YouTube. That's what I'm doing, and that's what most entrepreneurs are doing. But Podbean does offer video hosting if that's something that you are interested in or curious about. What I don't love about Podbean, they don't offer private podcasts like Captivate does. You can't have unlimited podcasts like shows the way that Captivate can. And then this is a little thing, but I'm kind of nitpicky about it. Unless you go to the highest, most expensive tier, they're going to keep Podbean branding on everything you do. And I get it on a free tier or a really low cost tier, but that kind of rubs me the wrong way. Like, let me have my own branded stuff.
For pricing, Podbean does have a basic free plan that you can try out. It only comes with 5 hours total storage space. I don't like that they don't have a toggle for annual and monthly plan. So the monthly fees, which is what I usually compare when deciding, is down here in the smaller print. So $14 a month is where their paid plans start. $39 a month here. And then their network plan, if you want to have multiple podcasts and have a podcast network, then that's $99 a month. And of course, there is a discount if you pay annually.
So who is Podbean best for? Anyone that doesn't know how much content they're going to upload each month. Maybe you do a 2-hour episode sometimes and a 4-minute episode other times, and you just don't want to have to think about like limited uploads, then Podbean might be a great choice. And if you plan on putting a video podcast somewhere other than on YouTube, then it might be something worth looking into. What we don't love about it, it's not the best choice for anyone who wants to have multiple podcasts or endless analytics like Captivate has, or a private podcast, or some of those things that we mentioned that it is lacking. But if it sounds like a good fit for you and if you want to try it out, I've got a special link for a 30-day free trial in the description of this video versus the 7-day free trial that you get on their website. So you can use that link and get those extra 23 days for free to try it out. And the third recommendation to look at for entrepreneurs is going to be Buzzsprout. This is what I use for my podcast, and they do their pricing based on how much you upload. So if you know you're going to be consistent in your show, it's easy to look at it and go, oh yeah, 3 hours a month, 4 episodes, 45 minutes or less per month. Yeah, easy enough. I'm going to be able to do 3 hours per month. So that's where I'm not too worried about it. And then you get unlimited downloads. So it doesn't matter how big your audience gets, you still pay the same price because it's based on how much you upload every month. So what do I love about Buzzsprout? Well, first of all, the simplicity. I'm always looking for simplicity in my life and in my business. And Buzzsprout takes simplicity very seriously. Their whole thing is, let's make it so easy to start podcasting. In fact, they'll let you podcast for 3 months for free. How's that for a free trial? We'll talk about that more here in just a second when we look at the pricing. Buzzsprout also has a mobile app, so if you want to do things on your phone, that's kind of nice. I like the notifications where it's like, your episode got 500 downloads, and it's like, oh, cool, thanks for the dopamine hit. So what's not to love about Buzzsprout? Well, you do have to pay per podcast on Buzzsprout, so that's why if you're doing multiple shows, then maybe Captivate is a better option. Although Buzzsprout is so affordable, as you'll see here in a second, you might just pay for 2 podcasts on Buzzsprout if you like it. And then the other thing is they don't have a private podcast option. I almost didn't go with Buzzsprout for this when I was making the shift a few months ago, but I decided to go with Buzzsprout because there is another platform that I think does private podcasts better than anybody. And it made the most sense to get an affordable Buzzsprout plan and this other one for my private podcast. So I am using 2 different plans, super easy. I don't have to think about it a lot, and that's worked out best for me. I'll link up to that in the description as well if you are looking for a separate private podcast platform.
As I mentioned, Buzzsprout actually does let you have 3 months free, 90 days of hosting, as long as you're uploading 2 hours each month or less, which would be like 30-minute episodes, not too bad. But then their paid plans start at $12 a month. If you upload a little more, have longer episodes or more episodes, then $18 or $24 a month. But really, really straightforward, easy to understand, and affordable all the way through.
So who is Buzzsprout best for? Entrepreneurs that want to keep things simple. You don't want overly complex tech, and you just want to publish and get back to running your business. I also think Buzzsprout is the best option for anyone who's like trying out podcasting, because you truly can do it for 3 months for free. And think about that. That's potentially 12, 13 episodes before you have to start paying. So not too bad of an option there if you're just trying it out. Buzzsprout, not the best choice if you're going to have multiple podcasts. In most scenarios, you want a private podcast, or if you want all the settings and endless analytics and bells and whistles and networks and all that kind of stuff that we talked about that Captivate has. If you want to try out Buzzsprout, you can use our link in the description to not only try that 90 days free, but also if you do decide to upgrade to a paid plan, you get a $20 credit, which will cover your first month and then some, depending on which plan you end up choosing. By the way, all of the platforms are adding AI features. Some of them are charging extra for them. I do think that AI integration into podcast hosting will become the norm sooner rather than later. So there's one more feature as entrepreneurs that we've got to have no matter what host you choose. Well, podcasts, the great thing about them is that they live on for years in some cases. You know, when your show gets big enough, you could have an episode you made 2 years ago that is still getting 50 downloads a week or 2,000 downloads a week. But it sucks because you've already recorded it, and it's like, well, what if you want to promote your 5-day challenge that you're doing right now, or your upcoming launch, or your new lead magnet, and you can't? Well, there's a technology called DAI, or Dynamic Audio Insertion, and that is where you can record a new audio file and basically apply it to all 100 episodes you've published, or 200, or 10, depending on how far along you are. And only some podcast platforms offer this. All three that we mentioned today do include some form of dynamic audio insertion, so you're covered with any of Podbean, Captivate.fm, and Buzzsprout. But if you're looking at something else, make sure they offer dynamic audio insertion so that you can promote topical things throughout all of your episodes. And then as soon as you finish your launch or whatever it is, it just pulls the audio back out, and if somebody new comes along and downloads that episode, then they won't hear that thing because it's no longer relevant. So again, we've gathered all the links, including some for some extended free trials and some other goodies for all three of the hosting platforms. You can find those in the description of this video. And if you're just starting a podcast, let me put this up here on the screen for you. There we go. It's a playlist of other podcast tutorials to help you with picking out a camera, picking out a great microphone on a budget, your video background, all the things like that. So click on that, see if there's anything there that will be helpful to you as well. I can't wait to see you start to get your show launched. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.